RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Right now, it is Arnold Classic Week, so we're running an Arnold Classic special at SpeciesNutrition.com. 50% off select flavors and sizes of ISOLYZE and 50% off unflavored CARBOLYZE. The link is below in the show description, so if you're watching us on YouTube, the link is in the description below. If you're watching us on RxMuscle, the link is in the article page. This is your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. All your questions on diet, training, supplementation. Of course, the Arnold Classic is this weekend, so we have videos going up on the RxMuscle YouTube channel as well as RxMuscle.com relating to the Arnold Classic as we now bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, let's touch on the sale right now, SpeciesNutrition.com, as well as the interview we have right now with Shanique Grant, somewhat of a mystery figure, but you got a lot out of the physique superstar.
Yeah, well, first of all, I got to tell you, I got my Big Lenny shirt on. I'm supporting Big Lenny. So all you Big Lenny fans out there, and I actually spilled coffee on the shirt before I started the show, and I was going to change, and I'm like, Big Lenny wouldn't change. He's not a cookie cutter. So I just said, fuck it, I'll just leave the shirt on with the coffee stain on it. Yeah, it just needs to be mopped this time. Great sale at SpeciesNutrition.com. I had to do something big for the Arnold, okay? 50% off certain ISOLYZE flavors, caramel macchiato, cookies and cream. We also have 50% off unflavored CARBOLYZE. So if you guys want to make an unbelievable post-workout shake, 2 scoops ISOLYZE, 1 scoop CARBOLYZE, shake it up, you can get 50% off both of those. Check it out at the SpeciesNutrition.com website. Guys, this is while supplies last. We had a couple little extra inventory. We want to dwindle it down a little bit. You guys are going to benefit only for the Arnold Classic. So guys, act now. I'm telling you, this will go fast because we don't sell ISOLYZE and CARBOLYZE at 50% off because they're high commodity items. They cost a lot to make, but we're doing a special sale just because the Arnold Classic's coming up. So I want you to, guys, capitalize on that. Don't cry to me afterwards because once we run out of this lot, it's over. Also, I want to talk about the Shanique Grant interview. I've been wanting to interview her since she pulled out of the Olympia last year. I really didn't know what it was all about. No one did. She really didn't talk about it too much, and she really tells us what exactly happened. She had a detached retina, and it was almost completely detached, which would have meant that she would have been blind. So she went in for a very serious surgery, and luckily all worked out well. And she's the best that she's been for this show, and hopefully she'll be in the best shape. Because I don't think anyone in this division can beat Shanique Grant when she's at her best and when she actually gets on stage. So that's my prediction for the women's physique division. I can do it right here, is Shanique Grant for the win.
Well, especially with no Juliana Malacarni competing at the Arnold Classic, Shanique Grant has to go in as the odds-on favorite. Let's get to the questions. If you want to join us, you can join us on the Muscle Central Forum at RxMuscle.com or on our Instagram page, official_RxMuscle, official Facebook page, or you can tweet at us using hashtag AskDave. First, we go to a good friend of the show, IFBB Pro, Fuad Abiyad. Is there a benefit to squatting past parallel? If so, what is it? Should we squat only to parallel?
I'll tell you why I think it's a benefit to squat below parallel. First of all, if you're going to squat below parallel, you must open your stance up wider. You can't go below parallel when your feet are like this close, because what happens is your knees go forward. You just don't have the flexibility to do. When you open up that stance, now you can bow your knees out a little bit and you can go below. The reason you go below is because number one, you engage the glute muscles more, and secondly, you engage those adductors, those inner thigh muscles, really engage below parallel. There would lift you out of the bucket. There would lower you into that bucket. And you know what? Most guys that I see on stage that are lacking leg thickness are not lacking necessarily quads. They're lacking those inner adductors and or the glute development. So going below parallel adds that extra dimension. Look, full range of motion results in full range of development. And if you're missing your adductors, if you're missing glute, and you're not going below parallel, that's the reason why.
Flex Falcone, does Testolyze help lower cortisol levels?
It's not a cortisol lower in the sense that it blocks cortisol output. And you know what the truth is? Everyone's always like trying to block cortisol. You don't want to block cortisol necessarily. Cortisol helps raise blood sugar when you're going hypo. What we want to block is stress in the body, because stress is what causes the oversecretion of cortisol. Now, if you have more testosterone in your body, okay, because you're using a product like ARNOLD, and then obviously it's going to negate some of that cortisol that's out there. So in essence, it kind of acts as an anti-catabolic type of agent. But the bottom line is that if you have excessive cortisol release in your body, it's probably because you're not sleeping enough, you're using too many stimulants, okay, caffeine and all those things, or you're just stressed out of your mind. And so you have to address those three things if you want to lower cortisol. There's really no drugs that do it. Bill Phillips back in the day said that clenbuterol was anti-catabolic. They said trenbolone acetate was anti-catabolic. But the bottom line is that, trenbolone may block cortisol receptors, but it actually stimulates cortisol release, probably because it stresses your nervous system out so much. So once again, get enough sleep, okay? Don't overtrain in the gym, okay? Make sure you keep your stress levels low. If you got to meditate or do whatever you got to do, if you got to use some Euphoria for my website, whatever's going to calm you down, that's going to keep cortisol low. When I was trying to put muscle on, and this is a true story. I'm almost embarrassed to tell this story. I think I've told it before. When I would drive around in my car, and sometimes you get a close call, like someone was cut you off and you slam your foot on the brake and you get that like adrenaline release and your heart jumps. I would actually get pissed off because I would think to myself, oh, there I go, I just released cortisol, now I'm gonna lose muscle because this freaking idiot cut me off. That's how obsessed with putting muscle on I was. So be mindful of stressful situations, be mindful of getting enough sleep, and be mindful of not using too many stimulants.
Let's go to Excellent 187. He has 3 questions. I'm going to go to the third one. The first 2 are pretty specific to him. What is the science behind having a cheat meal on the day you train a lagging body part? I remember hearing you say that you had McDonald's during your bulking phase back in the day. Hate the show more than Blackman hates glutamine.
I had my McDonald's meal every day of the week when I was bulking, so that wasn't really true. I don't think that you need to have a cheat meal on necessarily days of weak body parts, but what I did notice was that if I do a cheat meal, like say on a Saturday night, my Sunday morning workout always was really good because I had a lot of glycogen in the muscle. So if you do have a lagging body part or you feel that you're not able to push as well while you're dieting, in your depleted state, maybe try to time that workout the day after your cheat meal. So if you have a cheat meal Saturday night, Sunday morning you do or Sunday afternoon you do your weaker body part or the body part that you want to give a little bit more attention to. Eating the same day as you do the workout probably would not benefit you because you want that glycogen to be stored in the muscle, and that takes a while.
Let's go to the golden physique, Dave. How to compete on Deca without diuretics?
I don't know why people think that that certain drugs can't be used for contest prep. I mean, the bottom line is that drugs only make you hold water if you eat excessive amounts of carbohydrates. You could take 500 Dianabol tabs or 50 Anadrol 50s, which are the most water-retentive drugs because they're orals and they hit you so fast. And if you don't eat carbs, you're not going to hold any water from them. And if you do eat carbs, okay, but you restrict fluid, intake, you'll lose the water too. Now, I don't know why the person's not using diuretics, okay, but if they're not going to use any prescription diuretics, you could always use herbal diuretics for a show. And I don't even know if this person's even asking this question for competition. I think they might just be asking in general if they're going to walk around water retentive. Taking a couple shots of Deca is not going to make you super bloated. Like I said, unless you're eating like 1,000 grams of sugar during the day. So the notion that steroids make you bloated by definition really is really not true. They make you more prone to holding fluid, especially if you restrict fluid on a regular basis, especially if you restrict electrolytes like salt on a regular basis, which you don't want to do. And if you eat a ton of carbs, they'll make you a little bit more water retentive. And that's really because of the fact that they raise estrogen. And as we know, estrogen makes you water retentive.
We have a couple of questions on protein intake. First, we'll go to Dale David 96. What do you think of an extreme diet where you only consume protein except on the first meal and add some fat with that meal?
The term, as soon as you said the term extreme diet, I got extremely upset because I told you guys extreme stuff doesn't work. Okay, your body doesn't like to be subjected to ridiculous, kooky, crazy stuff. So as soon as you said the word extreme, you should have said, I got to stop myself, because I know Dave is going to say that that's not going to work well. Your body needs protein. There's no storage facility for protein in your body. Your body, whether you weight train or not, your body needs protein every couple hours because it needs to replace hair, nails, skin, internal intestinal lining, protein hormones, protein enzymes. These are all constantly being made in the body. And there's no storage facility for that. So if you don't eat protein every couple of hours, your body's going to be deficient in it. And it's going to pull amino acids from your skeletal muscle, which is the muscle that we're trying to build. So that's ridiculous. So don't go the whole day without eating protein. Not a good idea.
The way of Dara, Dave, I eat about 1 gram of protein every day and I consume, I don't know if you need 1 gram of protein. Let me go on. 1 gram of protein every day and I consume calories according to my hunger, eating until, quote, full to make sure I'm in calorie surplus. I'm gaining good muscle along with a reasonable amount of body fat. Do any successful bodybuilders come to mind that consume their calorie instinctively rather than weighing and tracking?
I think he probably meant 1 gram of protein per pound.
Yeah,
that's probably what he meant. I think that some guys do.
Clarify that later on too. Yeah.
Here's the problem: when you try to eat instinctually, okay, sometimes you're not hungry, and when you're not hungry and you don't eat, okay, that can cause muscle loss, or it can cause you not to get the muscle gains you might have gotten had you forced that protein down because you just trained. So I worry about instinct. Now, I was a guy who was always hungry. So instinctually, my body tells me, eat more food than you were eating. So for me, that might work. But for a guy who maybe doesn't like to eat so much and they're trying to eat instinctually, you'll probably stay really lean. You just won't grow. You got to plan your meals. You got to be like a maniacal nutcase, like a Guy Cisternino. And when you first start doing it, write everything down until you have it memorized. And it's got to become part of your routine. Just like you brush your teeth, hopefully in the morning when you wake up and before you go to bed, you got to be able to eat your 6, 7, 8, whatever it is, meals a day on a regular timed basis. Your body likes regularity. I have a newborn baby. I have a 2-year-old son. They do better when you keep them on a regular schedule. If I let my son take too long of a nap and we start the nap too late in the day, then he can't fall asleep at night and then his whole schedule's off. Same thing with bodybuilding. Keep it regular.
Strength is Beauty 92. As a bikini competitor, I'm doing 35 minutes of cardio 5 times a week during my off season. How will this affect my cardio during prep and my body's response?
Who knows? I always say that, try to do as little cardio as you can in the off season so that when you start cardio for the pre-contest, it'll do something. But if you happen to be one of these people that puts on a lot of body fat in the off season and you need a little bit of cardio, to keep you lean, I don't think there's anything wrong with 20, 30 minutes of cardio, 3 to 5 days a week. I think I know people that get into doing an hour every day in the off season, that's not good because then you start contest prep and where do you go from there? You're already in an hour, so don't overdo it. A little bit is good, too much is no good.
Benadu 14, what's the longest you can run Clen and still have it be effective, starting at a low dose and ramping up?
I've run clenbuterol on people for 16 to 20 weeks, and it seems to continue to work. You know what happens? When you first use clenbuterol the first 2 weeks, you get the best effect. It works amazingly. And then it down-regulates a little, but it continues to work. Okay, and that's what you have to understand. But steroids are like that too. The first 4 to 6 weeks, they work great, and then they slow down a little bit. But they still work. So, I think people are under the misconception that clenbuterol stops just because they don't feel all the side effects after 2 weeks, and that's just not the case. So I think you can do them up to 4 months and be okay, and then taper off them. It's it's another tool in the tool chest.
Sarush SRD, Dave, if you take sugars while on insulin to prevent going hypo, shouldn't that sugar increase your insulin even further and make it worse?
I've been studying insulin, and I did my own experiment. I think I told you this. I was running a little bit high blood sugar, just a couple of points high, and so I decided I was going to get a blood sugar monitor my blood sugar, and I was going to take some long-acting insulin, a basal insulin, like Lantus. And I did this experiment for 4 months, and my blood sugars were really good when I took the Lantus, insulin. Sometimes if like I had a big meal, I noticed that I would run high, and I'm like, I wonder why I'm running high. And sometimes I would take a little bit of Humalog, which is a fast acting, to lower that high. And then I realized, you know what? From talking to Colette Nelson, who's an insulin expert, she's type 1 diabetic, and reading, I realized that when you're taking exogenous insulin, especially long-acting combined with a short-acting, sometimes it shuts your body down. So yeah, I was giving my beta cells rest, but complete rest. So then I noticed that if you don't take enough insulin for the carbs you eat, you'll run a little high because your body's not producing its own. So after 4 months, I decided I'm going to stop taking the insulin. Okay, I gave my beta cells enough rest, and now I haven't been taking anything. I've been eating pretty much whatever I want. I always eat pretty healthy anyway, but I'm eating some high carb meals, and my blood sugars are running perfect. So it seems as though the 4 months of rest that I gave my beta cells enabled them to regenerate and to just like we do detoxes to give the internal organs of digestion a rest. It seems like my insulin cells are working really well, which might lead me to believe that when you're over the age of maybe 40, 45, you might want to do once a year give your beta cells a little chance to regenerate. You may not have to do 4 months, maybe do a month once a year. It might be an interesting little, experiment. Now, to get to your question, the problem is that if you're taking I guess you could say a fast-acting insulin like Humulin R or Humalog, and you think, well, if I'm eating sugar, I might, my body's going to still produce its own. It might not. Your body might not produce its own because you have that other insulin on board. So the experiment is have a blood sugar monitor. Like I told you, you can get these at Walmart for $9. Test your blood sugar, before you eat the meal. Have your meal with your insulin, and then 2 hours later, which is your postprandial blood sugar, test it again, and it should be under 130. If you're not, you might need to take a little more insulin because your body just might not be releasing its own at that point. That's why you want to kind of figure how many grams of carbs you're going to eat for the insulin that you're taking.
Let's go to Dave Deca. Dave, what was your mentality like going into a show, specifically your first one? Did you pay much attention to who was going to be there competing against you? I'm doing my first one and could use some insight.
I knew that I didn't look that good in terms of not having enough muscle. I was only been training about 9 months, and I went from being a long distance runner at 135 pounds to getting on stage as a middleweight at 168 pounds, which was a lot of muscle for almost just about a year of training, right? But I'm 10 and a half when I was 20 years old. I'm a little shorter now. And, I was nervous because I'm like, I'm going to be too skinny for these guys. And I was 100% natural. It was a natural show, but who knows, who's natural or not. And I'm the middleweight. I'm the tallest guy in the class. Everyone backstage thinks I look like probably a refugee. I take my stuff off and everyone's like, holy, this guy's pretty ripped. But I just wasn't big enough. So to me, I was very nervous and insecure with myself. And I was happy I did the show, but I was pissed that I didn't place. And, because the first show, winning a trophy is everything for you. And back then it was hard. It wasn't like it is now with the 600 classes you can do. So I was a little upset. I said to myself, I'll never compete again until I know that I can at least step on stage with enough muscle to not embarrass myself. And sure enough, 2 years later, I competed at 200 pounds, 198, 200. I did one show at 198 in the light heavyweight class, and I did another one at 200 pounds. So I put on another, what is it you figure, another 42 pounds, which is crazy when you think about it. So I gained like 70-something pounds in 2 years, or 3 years, I should say. And, that's great results. And so the thing that you have to remember is that you're competing against yourself. As long as you're making improvements from the last version of yourself to the version now, you got nothing to worry about. And I always knew my conditioning was good, so I always knew that I couldn't do anything else. Hey, I did everything I possibly could do. If you show up at a show knowing you've done everything you can do, then there's nothing to be nervous about. Now, when you get to the national level and you know you did everything you can do and you still might not win and you're trying to get a pro card, that could be depressing. But the bottom line is you have to believe in yourself when you're there. Don't worry about what anyone else looks like, even though we were always used to check out the other guy. Hey, what does he look like? What does he look like? What do you think? You think I can beat him? That kind of stuff. You really shouldn't do that, but it's human nature. It's impossible not to. And like I said, get up there and have fun with it. If you're not having fun, you're in the wrong sport.
Let's go to Caleb Griggs. Dave, I just started keto, and I wanted to know what are the signs that the fats are not high enough and need to be added? Like, is it being too tired or being irritable from the lack of carbs? And also, I know that you say heat affects olive oil, but does it affect the fat content Like, does it diminish?
Well, heating olive oil destroys all the health benefits of the oil, so you might as well just throw it in the garbage after that. You know, if you're going to use, if you need to heat something up oil-wise, use macadamia nut oil, or even look. I'm not a big, huge coconut oil fan, only because, once again, coconut oil is not an essential fat; it's just a fuel source. But it's better to heat coconut oil than it is to, you know, use olive oil if you have to heat it. So once again, I don't really. The only thing I use mac oil for cooking-wise is my eggs, and I grease the pan just with a very thin layer. All my other meats and chicken and fish, I poach. I put in a wok with water and soy sauce or water and spices, and that's how I cook it. Because you start pouring a lot of oil in there, you're adding a lot of extra fats that are going to get soaked into some of the foods. You're going to be eating a lot more fat than you need to be eating. How much is enough? Usually half a gram per pound that a woman weighs is enough, you know, spread over her 5 meals is good for a woman. For a guy, you can eat up to 0.75 grams of fat per pound that you weigh. And once again, you got to play with that. You know, usually I find that 20 to 30 grams of fat per meal is pretty good for a man on a ketogenic diet.
Classic boy Des, what are the best ways to control blood pressure when on off-season supplements?
Blood pressure medication, unfortunately. Look, some people are just prone to high blood pressure. And if you're running high blood pressures, rather than panic and start trying to do all these kooky things, you certainly don't want to be on diuretics, because that's going to anything that dehydrates the muscle cell makes it catabolic. It takes you out of an anabolic state. So if you have to, because your blood pressure is high, take something, get your doctor to prescribe you a mild ACE inhibitor like Ramipril or Lisinopril. These will lower your blood pressure, plus they're kidney protective, okay? And they don't have any negative side effects. So there's no negative to taking them. There's just only positives to it. So that's what I recommend.
You're watching Ask Dave on RxMuscle.com, brought to you by Species Nutrition again through Sunday night, 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're running an Arnold Classic special at SpeciesNutrition.com. The link is in the show description below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on RxMuscle.com, it is in the article. We got a testimonial regarding FiberLyze. I'm not sure, Dave, if you want to fill in the name, but we got a testimonial saying that he had distal pancreatectomy and a splenectomy along with intestinal resection in 2014. Says he's 37 years old, avid weightlifter, tried many fiber supplements and laxatives. They did not work. He tried FiberLyze. One scoop it did wonders for his digestive. You can tell that English is not his first language, but appreciate his support and testimonial regardless. Says it did wonders for his digestive systems, and he wanted to say thank you for producing such great products.
You know, a lot of people have asked me about FiberLyze, and you know, the two comments I get is the people who've tried it say to me, how come everyone doesn't use this? And I'm like, well, not everyone is ready to use it. You know, it's like sometimes, you know, the message, I think they always say when the student is ready, the coach will appear, that kind of thing. Or when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And that's really what it is with FiberLyze. When people are ready to start FiberLyze, they'll use it, and when they start using it, they don't stop. And you know, the reason why it's so good is because I made sure it was good. I made sure it was a very potent, soluble source of fiber from psyllium. We know psyllium is 8 times more potent than oat bran on a gram-for-gram basis. We also know that there's different grades of psyllium that you can use. And we use the highest grade of psyllium, so you get the most potent effect from it. Likewise, we've combined FiberLyze with a source of insoluble fiber, which most fiber supplements don't have. And if they do have soluble and insoluble fiber, the soluble never is from psyllium, because once again, they want to save money. So we have the soluble from psyllium, we have the insoluble fiber. The original formula had wheat bran, and I changed it to corn, like a specialized form of corn bran fiber, because I wanted to take the gluten out of it, because we had some people that were gluten intolerant who couldn't use it. So it's a gluten-free product now. We took all the artificial colors out of it. So if you notice, when you mix your FiberLyze, it doesn't turn red or orange anymore like it used to, because there's no reason to have the coloring agents in there. Obviously, we still have the flavoring system in there, because the flavor makes it so good that it makes it go down a lot easier. If you've ever tried to buy just a pure psyllium husk product, it's like literally trying to gag down sawdust, and that's just no fun. So, you know, I'm glad that people are finally appreciating the product. We sell a lot of the stuff, and I appreciate your support. I'm glad that everyone really loves it. I know Guy's sister Nino has a case of both flavors in his house at all times, because God forbid there's a hurricane or snowstorm and he can't get out and get some more. Very smart man.
Let's go to Rob MT. Now, it might be a bit early to answer this question, but as we enter into the competition season, you're probably going to get questions like this. Given the history of, quote, momentum swaying judges towards awarding Mr. Olympias with one last dubious Sandow, Arnold's last one, and Dorian with his multiple muscle tears as example, do you believe that this year may be that year for either Phil Heath or Flex Lewis?
I don't think that Flex Lewis has really shown any vulnerability at this point to losing. He wasn't his best last year, but he still was better than everyone else. And as far as Phil Heath goes, if Big Ramy shows up in shape, Phil will lose. I don't think that there would be any doubt or any hesitation in the judge's mind that when Ramy shows up in shape, just like we were all waiting for Kai to show up in shape on the Olympia stage, which he never did, it would have been game over for Phil. So Phil is a great champion because he always brings good conditioning, he always brings his A game, and he's also really lucky. Because all the years where there's been people that have conceivably had the opportunity to beat him, they just haven't shown up, and he did. And that's sometimes what makes a great champ, knowing how to win. Finding a way to win when it seems hopeless. Phil is fantastic at that. Think about it. If he wins 8 this year, that ties the record. Who would have thought Phil Heath would have won 8 Olympias? It's not like he has that dominant of a physique that he can do it. I mean, Ronnie and Haney had this sheer domination over the rest of the lineup. Phil is very mortal when you see him next to these other guys. He just knows how to exploit their weaknesses and take advantage of his strengths. And that's this mark of a champion in my book,
Let's go to Miguelito Hudson. Thinking of throwing orals in my protocol. Is Proviron a solid choice, and what could I expect from it?
I don't think you can expect very much at all from Proviron. It has no anabolic properties whatsoever. It's technically an androgen. Some people would say, from the literature, that it displaces testosterone from its binding protein, so it frees up more testosterone in the bloodstream. Haven't seen that illustrated on blood work by bodybuilders that I've worked with, so I can't really say if that's the case. To me, I think it's a waste of a supplement. Back in the 90s, we thought, because Bill Phillips wrote that in his book, that Proviron inhibited estrogen receptors, very similar to the way Nolvadex worked, but it doesn't seem to do that either. So I don't know what it does. Once again, maybe if you're a woman and that's all you're taking, you might get some results from it, but once again, it doesn't have any anabolic properties, so you're not going to build muscle from it. It might just harden you up. From a male standpoint, I wouldn't waste my money with it.
Jerry D. Tony, I'm coming off Tren at 400 mg a week. What can I run with Test E that does about the same?
Nothing does the same as Trenbolone, but if you want to switch to another potent compound that will help you, amplify the effects of the testosterone you're using, you can try Masteron. You can try, probably my favorite would be Equipoise at 200 milligrams 3 times a week. So that would be my suggestion.
Ross Bennett went to the ER and blood test showed TSH was significantly elevated. However, T3 and T4 levels were normal. Would there be any bodybuilding related explanation of why I was experiencing this? I was having night sweats and heart palpitations due to TSH elevated. No use of T3 in the past.
TSH elevations won't cause thyroid-like symptoms of heart palpitations and stuff like that. TSH is thyroid stimulating hormone. It's a hormone produced by the pituitary gland in your brain that tells the thyroid gland produce T4. Then the thyroid gland produces its T4, and that T4 can then get converted into T3, which is the active thyroid metabolite. When T3 reaches a certain threshold amount in the body, it will go back and tell the hypothalamus in the brain, stop sending out signal to produce more TSH. So, if your TSH is high and T4 and T3 are normal, it has to make me believe that the thyroid gland is having trouble producing enough thyroid hormone. So in other words, TSH is released, it stimulates the thyroid gland is not responding to the TSH enough, and so there's not enough T4 being produced, which is then converted to T3. So what the body has to do is produce additional TSH to overstimulate that gland. And that can usually make the gland get bigger in size, causing maybe a goiter formation there. So you might want to check the gland out Might want to get an ultrasound of the gland. It could mean that your gland is starting to fail, and then eventually your T4 levels and T3 levels may drop. So you might want to continue to get that thyroid checked the way you are every 3 months to make sure that you're not losing or the gland is not, like I said, getting too big in size, or it's not able to keep up with the demand to produce T4 and T3.
Take one more question again before we do live with Shanique Wren interview with the physique superstar, available right now at RxMuscle.com and the YouTube channel. Dave gets the explanation as far as why she withdrew from last year's Olympia and her thoughts going into this Arnold Classic, especially with no Juliana Malacarne competing in Columbus, Ohio. Simple question, but one that probably a lot have been wondering, especially for the beginning class. Muscle soreness, is it needed for growth?
No. The answer to that's no. It's not needed. A lot of times when we start working out, okay, initially, we're breaking down muscle that's not used to being trained that way, and we become sore because of that. I mean, the first leg workout I did, I didn't do legs again for 2 months after that. I said, I can't handle this kind of pain. I thought it was going to be like that all the time. The more you do it, the more used to the working out you get, the more your body just doesn't get as sore anymore. So when I was at the height of my career, I would lift crazy heavy weights and I wouldn't get sore at all. I might get fatigued from the workout, but I never got like super crazy sore. And that's because my body was able to handle the workload I was giving it. It doesn't mean you're not responding and getting bigger from it. It just means you're not becoming debilitated from it. Now, Sid, I understand do we have a store of the week this week?
We do. We actually do. Let me pull it up real quick. Monster Nutrition. If you're on Long Island, they're based in Farmingdale, New York, which is sort of on the border of Nassau County and Suffolk County. I believe our producer Tyler is showing the graphics right now of their storefront and the products in their store. A good friend of RxMuscle and Species Nutrition, Monster Nutrition. Dave?
Yeah, great new store out there. I mean, I love to see, new stores cropping up, because a lot of people are afraid to open a nutrition store because they think, well, everyone buys stuff online and Amazon and la-da-da-da-da. And yeah, people do shop online, but people go to brick and mortar stores because they want to talk to a real person there. They want advice on what supplements to buy, what are the different options they have, and Monster Nutrition is doing a terrific job of offering the best quality supplements out there on Long Island. It's funny because they're only a couple blocks from my fulfillment warehouse there, so they're always making stops there and picking stuff up and restocking, and I love that. And I love the fact that they're not afraid to sell Species Nutrition, knowing that it's a higher end product line, knowing that it requires education, and that's where they come in, because they educate the consumer. So if you're on Long Island and you want to stop into a great store and pick up some products, stop at Monster Nutrition if you're in the Suffolk-Nassau area.
Their address is 319 Northwest Drive. Again, it's in Farmingdale. Stop in, ask for Darren. He'll hook you up. They have smoothies on premise as well. Monster Nutrition in Farmingdale, New York. Arnold Classic weekend coming up. There are going to be boatloads of videos, analysis, previews, and of course, recaps available at RxMuscle.com. This is the end of the show. Special thanks to Tyler, our producer, Dave Palumbo. We'll see you next week.